you can hear all the noise, apparently we have blocked toilets in our little community here. So the guy that owns the place knocked on my front door yesterday and said, "Do you have a blocked toilet?" And I'm like, "No." But apparently I do. I have 3 toilets in this house, and it's the bottom one that's blocked, and I never use the bottom one. So he's come in to do the clearing. So there might be noise while we're here. So if you wonder what it is, that's what it is. Okay, let's just get myself organised here a little bit. There we go. All right, I'm going to read one from the Fairies Oracle. Then I will read a card from the Wings of Wisdom, which is that one. And then we might do a little bit of a reading online today. I thought that might be a bit of a treat for some people. So let's see how we go with the Fairies Oracle first. I hope you're all doing well. It's certainly been a very different life. I'm actually dreading going back into public a little bit, but I've started getting out and sort of going for foods and coffees and things like that. So that sort of helps me a little bit get a bit more into the flow of being a human being again. Getting there. Wow, it's very quiet today. Where are you guys? All right, we have the Singer of Healing coming out here. Which is card number 10. Okay, this is the Healer's card, and its presence in a reading may speak of healing to be given or of healing to be received. The circumstances and processes of reaching well-being may seem easy or they may bring great challenges. In either case, we are asked to participate in our own healing as we are strengthened by this singer. More usually, the singer speaks of both giving and receiving because we cannot truly and freely give without receiving as well. Healing is something that flows through us, not from us, and as such, we are inevitably affected by its passage. Drawing this card tells us both a need and an opportunity for healing ourselves and perhaps others as well. So that's quite interesting. So that's what's come out today. So maybe you're doing a little bit of healing on yourself at the moment, or maybe you have started healing other people and it may be part of your journey. So that's quite an interesting little card to bring out. Because many of us are healers, but we don't really, I guess we do it in a way that we don't call it healing. Sometimes you just listen to others. Sometimes you are quite used to, listening to others talk, giving other people support. But sometimes that is about healing, but we just don't see ourselves as healers. So it's all very beautiful. I'm taking it nobody got the bell today. Which is quite interesting. So maybe I need to go off and come on again. Okay, so I'm reading a card from the Wings of Wisdom. I'm not going to read the book. Hey, Lauren, how are you going? I'm not going to read the book. I'm going to just read the back of the card. So I've pulled out Mayfly. And this is about the quickening, opportunity, and saying yes. And it's the affirmation of saying yes to life. When it is time to take a step, do so with the courage of your convictions, recognizing that opportunities are precious and are about to be embraced without hesitation. Act without fear or regret. Live your life with the passion and bravery that comes from realizing that you only get to be you in this life, in this body once, and for a limited time only. Allow that knowledge to fill you with gratitude and the determination to embrace your life with gusto. Step into a new roles or opportunities, confident that you'll find your way as you go. That's very beautiful. So maybe the healing is you're doing the healing to yourself to bring yourself in more opportunities. I see the quickening there, and that reminds me of I can't think of the name of the movie. I'll think of it soon. So, yeah, that's what you're getting there. is opportunities coming in, and I think it's through healing yourself. So how are you, Lauren? You're the only one on today. I'm not sure if nobody got the message. I can see there are people here, and I know people do watch, but they can't comment. So they usually send me an email later and say, I was watching your reading, and this is my, contribution or whatever, but they can't actually comment on that bit, that thing. I'm really good, thank you. I just say no, the owner of the place I live in just came around and said, my pipes are blocked. My toilet's blocked. And they're making a lot of noise out there, but that's okay. They need to do something. I've had no trouble. He was like, is your toilet blocked? I was like, no, haven't had a trouble. And he came back and said, it is blocked. And I was like, it hasn't done anything to make me think it's blocked. Hey, good morning, Sherla. How are you going? I know. That's what I thought, because I came on and I was on for like a good probably 5 minutes or so, and there was nobody happening. And I was like, oh, well, okay, everybody's got their own life in order. Everybody's back to doing what they should do. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's what it is. There's four units. Like this one I live in is like a house, so it's quite big, has 3 bedrooms, 3 toilets. The one next to me is exactly the same, but the one on the back and the one on the front are just single story units. And it was the one at the front that's getting the trouble, which says to me the blockages probably come further back. But anyway, it's all good. It's all good. So I'm going to do a reading. I thought I'd do a reading online today. So let's see how that goes. I don't do that very often, so let's see how it is. The readings have been all over the place lately. So, all right, we have the 3 of Cups coming out. So the 3 of Cups is the card that in its traditional sense talks of celebrating with family and friends. But it can talk about reunions, people coming together to celebrate, and sort of like weddings, christenings, families, things like that. The thing is with the 3 of Cups, it very often comes up when you have a relationship with someone who's in another relationship. It's synonymous for me for that. Other people sort of see some of the other cards. This is the one that comes up most for me in that situation. Have the Knight of Pentacles coming in behind that. So the Knight of Pentacles is someone coming in to make an offer. Only they're very, very slow with this offer. Hey, how you going? How are you, Jeanette? Somebody's coming in to make an offer. Now, this card does represent the earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. Whoever this person is very, very slow though. So they're really thinking about how to make this offer, which often gives rise to the fact that someone is maybe unsure and wants to make sure they get it right. Okay, and then we have the 7 of Cups. Okay. My illusion, delusion, confusion card. So we either have someone who's very confused about a relationship or is not really sure the direction to go in here. Maybe why he's taking so much time trying to make sure he does it right. Yeah, there is somebody definitely moving out of some sort of situation here. Now, you may not know this person, but there is definitely a relationship here. We do have the card that people call the twin flame card because it has 1111 on it. This is about stability. It's about finding stability, but traditionally in the tarot, it is the card of union, coming into union. Behind that, we have the Fool card. So definitely a leap of faith involved here. So someone's coming in to make an offer to you that you will have to take a leap of faith on because the universe has pushed it along. So, all right, let's go. 3 of Pentacles coming out. So the 3 of Pentacles is a card of working on oneself. It's a card of working on a project. And when we're working on a project, it means that we are either setting off in business for ourselves. It can mean doing a project at work, but it can also talk about working on your own spirituality. And that's what it comes up most for me. I know that this is a card where you do need to do work on yourself to achieve something. Why do I feel that way? Because these people are working in a church, which says to me it's something to do with your own spiritual nature or your own religion here. Okay, and we have the Hermit coming in. So somebody is getting prepared for a journey here. Somebody is getting themselves ready for a journey, which means that they are doing the work that is needed or required on themselves to embark on this journey. And sometimes that means like working on your inner self, or maybe it's working on your financial status. It could be working on other things that are holding you back from having a relationship. If you're like me during the time of the COVID, it's sort of like, I don't know if I have place in my life for someone at the moment. I'm so busy with everything, and it's just really difficult to take time out to do things. And I really am doing them because I need to socialize. But at the end of the day, it's not really a how would you say it? It's not really a life or death situation for me at the moment. I'm quite comfortable where I am. Okay, so we have the Four of Cups here. So this is the energy of being offered something and not wanting it. Sometimes the card itself talks about apathy and boredom, being bored in a situation. Maybe, figuring that you've already had, opportunities before that haven't worked out. So therefore, now you might be standing back and looking at a brand new opportunity and going, well, really, I've done this before. I'm not really up for it now. But it's certainly something that's been offered by the universe. So we have to take heed with that, because if the universe is offering this to you, it may be something you need to listen to. So your prior experiences or your past experiences may not matter here. Okay, and then we have the Seven of Swords. So for some of you, you don't know this person. For others of you, you may be in a period of solitude or not talking, not communicating at this time. It could have been that something went down before where you haven't discussed something. The swords represent, ideas, thoughts, talking, communication. And we see someone trying to get away with something here. So it often comes up when you've been ghosted or you're not talking with someone. But very often it can be that, you don't want to talk to anybody at the moment. Maybe you're in a place where you're not really, I'm no lady, Scott, sorry. Okay, Seven of Wands coming out. So we're talking about standing our ground, being stubborn and wanting something here. Just give me a second with the energy. Okay, I have the Eight of Wands coming through. Something's happening. Somebody's put some work into themselves here. And they're sort of getting to a point where they are ready to move forward. This person could have offered you something in the past, or you could have offered them something in the past, and there was a separation or a split where the two of you aren't talking to each other. But there's definitely a feeling of not wanting an offer at this time. And maybe this is how the person's feeling coming forward. Maybe that's why they're taking their time and trying to understand whether you would accept an offer at this time. I still think, with all the learning we do, sometimes it can be a little intimidating, can't it, to approach someone if you've already approached them previously. Very interesting. But there's definitely something coming in here. The universe is talking about abundance. It's talking about offering you something that you've really wanted, offering you the relationship you feel like you maybe have missed out on. Something here really strongly talks of communication, passionate communication here. Trying to sort of place yourself in something, trying to understand the other person, but also understanding your own desires, your own wants, your own needs. Okay, so there's the offer. So some of you could be dealing with a water sign, Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio. Ooh. You've got someone coming through who wants to do something long-term here. Definitely long-term with this King of Pentacles. He's very intent on, look at his big pentacle. He's very intent on making an offer. So you've got someone here who wants to make an offer, but is very, very unsure whether the offer is going to the right person at the right time. So they may be doing a little bit of toing and froing here. Trying to come forward, but then thinking, maybe not having the confidence to really assert themselves. Yeah, they're still in a place of healing. So someone wants to make an offer, someone's all ready to make an offer, but I feel like they haven't come to a place where they are really ready yet, okay? So they're still contemplating how to do this. This is why they're coming up as a very slow-moving energy. They're trying to understand. Now, for some of you, this person is leaving another situation, okay? And I feel that perhaps they've left and they're still in that state of confusion, unsureness, cloudy, maybe, about what they want at the moment, because they still need to do the healing. So they may be contemplating the fact that they want something solid, ready to take a leap of faith, have a brand new passionate start with you, but they're considering how to do this at this time. So you've got a very slow moving energy here. You've got someone who has done a lot of work. I feel like someone's come out of a situation and they've had to do a lot of work to get things in place. The Two of Wands tells me you could be dealing with someone from a distance, could be dealing with someone who has very different views to you. Some of you here could be dealing with a Pisces, significant Pisces energy here, but that could be in their placements. But whoever this is, either you're not talking to them because of a failed offer in the past, or you're not talking to them because you don't know who they are at this time. So you may be sort of waiting for an offer to come through here. Very interesting. Oh, and the Three of Cups came straight back up again. So I really feel for some of you, you've got someone who's coming out of another situation and is going through a healing process before they can come forward. So those of you who've been waiting for someone to come in, you've got someone who's working on themselves at the moment. That's what I keep saying, Lauren. It's really hard, isn't it? Even was like, I don't even want to get dressed up and go out for dinner. And I'm just like, oh, I really need to socialize. Isn't that awful? Somebody's getting passionate conversation. Somebody here. Yeah, see, there you go. Different views, like being Muslim. Yeah, or your person's got distance. So when we talk distance, especially with that Three of Cups, you can be talking about someone who doesn't live close to you. You can be talking about someone who lives in another country, someone who has a different religion, but there's some distance, can be emotional distance, which means that something needs to be sort of tweaked for something to come in to a union. So that's sort of what you're looking at. But whoever this person is, they're still coming. So, you know, I hear people say all the time, I know he's coming back, but it's been so many years. And I'm like, I think everybody's the same. There's no guarantees. So it's interesting. San Antonio, and you're in Oregon. How far away are they, Sarah? Tell me in hours. I can understand the distance in hours. So if I go and visit my sister, I know it's going to take me 13 hours to drive. Too funny. I got my Akashic record reading back last night, which was pretty awesome. A whole hour of listening to everything about myself, which was a lot to take in. And the woman who did it suggested that I watch the reading a couple of times, or listen to the reading. It was an audio reading. And I've got to say, I'm so on track. I'm so on track with what I'm supposed to be doing. Everything in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing was reaffirmed. I definitely blew out a little bit at that because I question myself quite a lot on what I'm doing. I also question a lot of things about myself. But the really incredible thing was I'd had an Akashic record done probably, maybe several years ago now. And a lot of the reading from this one aligned with that one, which I thought was pretty awesome. But she did go into a lot of my past lives, which the other one did as well, and how that's influencing where I am now. So that was really awesome, and really talked to me about some of the things that are holding me back. Which I talked to you guys about. But when I listened to it, I was like, I know Spirit keeps telling me that I need to share my story so that other people have more understanding of how to move forward on their own journey. And as I said to you before, that was really difficult for me to get up and talk about myself. And I haven't even shared half of my story with you because some of it I don't know is really relevant. And I'm still not always comfortable sharing stuff about myself. But then I do when I do private sessions with people if I feel that it's necessary. But I don't want to take up too much of your time by talking about myself. So I only do it when I feel like it's really relevant. But some of the stuff she said to me in that reading was pretty amazing. And I'm really, really pleased to know that, you know, my work and the work I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I am supposed to be on a spiritual journey. I am was talked about, which I got the message when I was probably in my 20s, was the Spirit said to me, you are the vessel for divine intervention. And I remember thinking, what the? What does that mean? And last night she came back with exactly the same expression in my reading. I also believe that we are here to love ourselves. Thanks, Jody. To love ourselves, but to also teach other people about the safety and the vulnerability of loving others. And the one thing that I post very often on my, it's going to make me quite emotional, that I post very often on my website is, you know, about love. And I always use the Beatles song when I do that. And that was the song she came back with. So that was very validating. All you need is love. That was it. And we're not talking about attachment. We're not talking about obsession. We're not talking about all of that stuff. We're talking about the love that you are learning to have for people without taking all of your baggage with you. And that's very often what we do. We take our baggage into our next relationship because we feel that that's what we know best. So if we've learned to treat people a certain way, we'll keep taking that into our next relationship. And then what happens is another relationship just breaks down. So I believe we're here to learn about true love, really understanding how to love another person the way you love your children, where it's unconditional, where you work through stuff, where you know, are there for them when they need you to be, but they don't take advantage of them because you teach them healthy boundaries. But for some unknown reason in our romantic relationships, we do things so differently. Like we throw ourselves all in thinking we've just got to invest. And that was the lesson that she said I needed to learn. Was when things go bad, I'm so desperate to prove myself to people. I constantly validate myself. And the more things go bad, the more I invest. And that is the lesson that I have to learn. So there was a lot of the lessons within that reading that really brought home to me how important it is that I need to share these messages with you. You can't have unconditional love if you are constantly pouring your vessel into somebody else. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, that you have to keep fixing, that you have to keep investing, that you keep doing stuff because you think you're helping someone else. You cannot fix people, no matter how hard you try. And the one thing you've got to learn is you cannot undersell yourself. You have to have your own value. So if somebody doesn't want to be with you, that's their issue, not yours, because you are valuable. And therefore, if somebody walks away, you have to say, you know what, Sonny, get on your bike. I'm done with it. I don't want to be here. If you don't want me for who I am, then I don't want to be with you. You can't chase people. You can't make people love you. You can't keep investing in them. So really important that you learn to value yourself. And apparently that's what I'm here for, to teach you how to value yourself. So it was really, really very, very beautiful. I'm going to go and listen to it again. I'm going to go and listen to it again because I feel that it's probably going to really resonate when I read it back through. But the things that really stood out for me were the things that I have already been doing. They told me about the Egyptian god again, which of course the other day I discussed happened to me down in Cootamundra, when I was shown the Egyptian gods, and I got that in the reading as well. So there was probably a good dozen things within that reading that I have totally recognized, and that is amazing. Absolutely, Sarah. And that is what it's all about. I don't know why we sort of grow up yet. The aliens and Egyptian gods, they were all in there. It was all in my reading. And that's what I'm saying. There was so much of the reading I went, oh, there was good things that I didn't know though, and I have to be better off. So one thing I really learned a long time ago is how we condition ourselves financially. So I would go to fairs and it would cost me $200, say, for a seat at a fair. And during the course of a day, I might do 10 readings of $50, which meant I could take home 500. But then by the time I took out the cost of petrol, sometimes overnight accommodation, and sometimes, other costs like petrol. So we sort of carpooled with other people to sort of cut our costs. So if I made a couple of $100, I'd be like, well, that's great. At least I've made my money back. And I said that for a really long time. I'm extremely humble. And I said that for a long time. At least I've made my money back. At least I've got enough. At least. And the one thing I have to learn is that is limiting me. That is limiting my growth. It's limiting how I do things. And I can't teach that to any of you now. There is nothing wrong with making money. Spirit gives us the opportunity to expand ourselves. Okay? They give us the opportunity to create. If I can be more comfortable with the amount of money I'm earning, then I can take my messages out to people everywhere. And apparently this has to be worldwide. That was my mission. And I'm already doing that. But I have to stop the focus on the finances. I have to stop it. Because when I gave up work and went back to part-time, I was really quite freaked out about dropping back in finances, and wondering if I could make that work. So I have a poverty consciousness that I never really understood. I always thought I was really comfortable. Again, with this reading that I had in the Akashic reading that I had done before, is my ability to always see both sides of the situation. So I used to think I was a fence sitter, and I'd say to people, I really don't mind. And I used to think, wow, am I fence sitting here? But it's not. I am a person who sees both sides of a situation. It's my Libran nature. I go, okay, it's not the greatest thing, but look, I can see both sides of the story here. And I have to learn how to take sides. And that's difficult for me because I see both sides as being equal. I'm not clear cut in that, no matter what I look at. Even if it's something like, I don't know, a problem with two people where, they're fighting about something. And I might think, well, you know what, you're right because you're saying that. But hang on a moment, this person here has a really good point. And I can't quite divide it. And apparently that's my lesson, to learn how to take sides with people. That's hard. That's going to be a hard one for me. I'm sure you've all talked a whole lot on the way through there. Yeah, I've got to work now on my poverty consciousness. Now, I never thought it was poverty consciousness. I guess, at my age, I've got to a stage in my life where I'm comfortable. I don't do without anything, but I don't really have, again, I'm comfortable where I am. See, it all sounds too airy-fairy when I talk it out loud, because I'm like, I'm not this perfect person, but I'm completely happy with where I am. I don't need any more. But now I have to allow myself to take more because it helps me to grow, and that's what I'm here for. Otherwise, I cannot spread the message. And that was very, very clear in the reading. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, well, as I said, I think that I always thought poverty consciousness was quite different to what it was explained to me. But I tell you what, victim mentality. So I always used to think that victim mentality was when you had a person who would, not get out of the idea, poor me. I've had so much trouble and I can't get out of this, and this is my life, and look at it, that's happened to me again, and of course it would happen to me. That's what I thought victim mentality was. I went for years thinking that was victim mentality. And I watched this guy talk about it, a psychologist talk about it on YouTube one day, and I was really drawn to watch him. And he explained victim mentality a very different way. And I know a lot of you here are going to get an epiphany moment. When you're in victim mentality, if you're at that end of the scale, you will be one of those people who acts like I just showed you. But you know what else also is victim mentality? When you say to someone, or your friend comes in and says, I need some advice on something. I hate my hair like this. What happens if I go and cut my hair really short and dye it red? And you go, no, 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 don't do that. It wouldn't suit you. And the person goes off and dyes their head red and cuts it short. And then you get offended because they didn't take your advice. And then you become resentful. That is victim mentality. Trying to fix other people when you don't have the right to fix other people. That is victim mentality. So a lot of the stuff we see as being good is not really good. It's our need. It's our desire to do things for others. And then when they don't do as we've shown them, or they don't respond to what we've got to offer, we get offended and hurt by that. Why? Because we have a victim mentality. And I'd never seen it that way before. So the guy that explained it was a South African guy, I think. Actually, I think somebody said they knew who I was talking about when I talked about him before. That is a victim mentality. So if you think the victim is the person that's whining around going, oh, you know, that always happens to me. The house has just fallen down. Of course it would have fallen down. I'm unlucky like that. That is not completely victim mentality. That's just a small portion up one end of the victim mentality scale. We are just as victim-minded by wanting to rescue others as that person up there is. Really interesting. Yeah, exactly. So that increases, Jody, that increases your poverty consciousness. We can't afford that. You know, what do you think we are? Do you think we're Rockefeller here? You know, we can't have the money. And people who have lots of money are evil. They're evil people. They have too much power because they have too much money. They're horrible people. But are they? You have a look at some of the people that stepped in to offer Australia help when the bushfire thing was going on. Do you think that they were considering that we might think that they, like a lot of people were saying, oh, they've got the money, let them pay for it? Really? That's still their money that they've worked for. They're still doing a service for the universe, whether that's through their music or their acting or whatever they're doing. They're still offering us a service. It's their life path. And if they offer us money, we should be incredibly grateful that people feel that way. Yeah, Ralph Fine. Yeah, he did offer. That's how you say Rafe Fine, or whatever you say his name now. Pink. Pink was the first one that came forward and offered funding for Australia. But there were heaps and heaps of other people that didn't even get a mention that offered millions of dollars here to help with the animals. Millions of dollars. And they're doing what their life path is. They're working, doing what they need to be doing. The Kentucky Fried Chicken guy. There you go. Yep. Johnson & Johnson guy. Yeah, see, Sarah, that's where you've learned all this stuff. Does it not make you realize how you've learned things so wrongly? Rich people are snobs and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Really? Is that true? Or is it the poor getting poorer because they don't expect any more? A bit like me, comfortably sitting on the fence and plodding along thinking what I've got is enough. Maybe it isn't, but that's my mindset. So now I have to change my mindset, because I apparently have a poverty consciousness. I feel like Richard Gere in Pretty Woman saying, you know, his psychologist told him to come to terms with something. That's what I'm doing now. So I have to, because so much of the reading resonated with me at such a high level and set off a lot of things for me listening to that. I have to really understand my importance in the world now, not my importance as a person. My value as a person is not as important as my value to the world. I have so much more to give, and now I have to change the way I do things so I'm not so humble. which is going to be interesting. Yeah, undo lessons learned. Absolutely. Undo programming. Beautiful. Guys, you're just onto it today. And that's what I said. It's like the victim mentality. I was like, okay, if you're going to keep talking about yourself all the time and how much you've achieved or how much you haven't achieved, maybe you're just a lot more needier than what you think you are. Perhaps it's time to stop and just, stop for a moment and just say to yourself, am I that person that needs to be, sitting or wallowing in my own stuff all the time because I can't get it right? Is that really what you are? Because every time, and another thing that came up in that reading was, it said something about you always tell people how to learn their lessons from things, and it's one thing I'm really big on. I say to people now, yeah, it's really tough, it's really hard, but is there something in there that you can take away from that's going to help you move in a different direction or help you on your journey? Because I see everything as a lesson. And let's face it, I've gone through some pretty shitty stuff in my life, but I've seen it as, pushing me forward and making me do more and making me improve more. And I still will keep doing that because I don't believe you ever stop learning. So you never stop, do you? You're just constantly changing and morphing and becoming the person you're meant to be. Yeah, there you go, Scott. No, you're wrong. Being humble is what you're taught to do. Being humble is what your family expected of you because that makes you challenge things less. It's not really what you're here for. You're here to be the best possible version of yourself. And you do that by loving yourself. And therefore, when you have loved yourself to a point where you feel really incredibly good about yourself, then you get to love someone else at the same value. So that's what it's all about. I like Jake Ducey too, Sarah. I have Jake Ducey on my, I've got a couple of people I follow like him. He fascinates me a little bit with his very sort of almost casual, laid back approach to things, but I love the things he says. There you go. The learning lessons from things happening, good or bad. So I really think that, we're all going to improve regardless, because we're going to get this information and we may choose not to change, and that's okay too. You might be very comfortable where you are, but if you can get rid of that social conditioning, that stuff you've been taught since the beginning, if you can learn to leave the social conditioning, the control, the narcissism, the codependency, whatever it is for you behind, then you have a very good opportunity of becoming an even better version of yourself than what you ever thought you could. And that's pretty awesome. So you can become even more awesomer. Absolutely, Jeanette. And it's amazing how many of us are holding ourselves back because we think that's what we have to do. And we all do that. I don't need any more. I don't want for anything. I'm really comfortable as I am. But am I? Would I like more? It was a big change for me to think about it because I've grown so accustomed to what I've had. And, I've gone without stuff so many times. And at my stage of life, I used to think, wow, I don't know how people have so much stuff. And I just had always plodded along and, I'm being comfortable with what I had. And I'm certainly not feeling like I need any more. But do I need more than what I've got? If I had more, would that allow me to be able to get to more people, to spread the word more, to open more people up, to help more people on their journey? So all of a sudden, I started thinking about it so differently. It's really crazy. Absolutely. But Lauren, you should be to the point where you're not even thinking about what you're doing and how it's coming to you. You just need to accept that it's yours. It's yours to begin with. It's yours to start with. That's what it's all about. That came up in the reading this morning, I think, that we tend to sort of look at what we can and what we can't do. Nice win, Lauren. I just wonder I just wonder, and I think that's what there's a couple of people who do the law of attraction, and they always talk about the fact that you've already got what you want. And I've watched them before, and they talk about what you already have is with you already. And I never really understood that concept. I never really got it. I listened to it so many times, but never really got it. And of course, those are the epiphany moments when you sort of go, okay, I get what you're saying now. I really get it. Yeah, my Winnebago. I'm going to do that. Now I've done it. Now you have no idea. That thing just absolutely got me thinking about everything last night. I was like, I could have sat up online and called you all up last night and gone, right, I can see it now. I can see what I need to do. And I really understand what I need to do now. And it's not everything else fell into place. What I've been doing all this time, the spiritual work, and the things that came through in the reading that I just went, I have seen this along the way. I know this. I know this stuff. But there were things in between that I need to do to make a better version of myself. And one of them is letting go of what's holding me back. It's crazy, isn't it, Shishi? Crazy. And that's what I said. Sometimes you can hear the same thing over and over and over again, and you hear it, but are you really listening? Are you really listening to what you've been told? Because a lot of the time we're not. We're hearing it, but we don't process it in a way that helps us out. So, I could talk to you for hours on poverty consciousness, and you could hear what I'm having to say, but you may not be really able to relate it to your own experiences in that moment, which means that you need to be a little bit more experienced, perhaps in other aspects of your life, so you can take that on board then and go, yep, I get it now. I understand what you're saying. I don't really understand why it takes us some time to do that. As I said, you can hear it lots of times, but never really understand it. And sometimes when I'm doing the readings in the morning, I'll have those little moments and you'll hear me stop and I go, wow, I've never thought of it that way before. I've never seen it that way before. And then I get to understand it differently. And the more I grow, the more I take on, because I become more equipped to digest new things. So when I get more equipped, Spirit then jumps in and goes, right, you're ready for the next level. Here you go. I'll give you one example. I'd always thought, we saw a really cool bus yesterday, like an old American school bus, one of those yellow buses done up. It was really cool. I always looked at clairvoyance in a certain way. And I used to say to people, I don't actually see spirit. I sort of formulate an idea of spirit in my head. So when I'm talking to people, sometimes I'm clairaudient. I hear the spirits talking to me and they tell me things. And then sometimes I have to sort of speak those to people because I'm not really quite sure what the spirit is trying to say to me. And I might need clarification from the person. And I always thought, like, I've always seen myself as being claircognizant, clairaudient, clairsentient. I've seen myself as being those things. But when people talked about being clairvoyant, I always thought that they meant people could actually physically see ghosts or spirits on the outside of them, which I do see sometimes flipping around, usually because the energy's there, the energy's different. And then when I did it last night, I thought, it's really funny because I've always thought of it that way, but actually I do see spirit, but I see spirit in here. I don't see them outside of myself. I can sense them and I can feel the energy, but I see them in here. So I actually am clairvoyant, but never really thought about it that way because I always thought practical mind, logical mind, spirits are outside of us. Very interesting. Yeah, yes. And same with movies. My kids, when they were young, this is a really good example. I let them watch. I was pretty open-minded with my kids, really. I was a very strict parent, but I was open-minded with some things. And I know that my kids watched Dirty Dancing. They loved it. They loved the movie. And I remember, and Pretty Woman too. So they watched both of those movies very young. And I remember my daughter coming to me years later and say to me, "I can't believe you let us watch that." And I was like, "Why?" And she said, "Well, Dirty Dancing had an abortion in it. I would have thought that you might have been, being you were a strict parent." I was like, "But as children, were you really seeing that?" It wasn't really, the movie was so beautiful. It really wasn't something that you needed to see. And I mean, the fact that the person was cheating on the other person and doing the wrong thing and then ran off and left them with a baby. I mean, that was really serious stuff in there. But my kids loved that movie for what it was worth, for the value of the entertainment. The same with Pretty Woman. I mean, she was a prostitute. She was a prostitute. And my daughter was like, "You let us watch a movie that had a prostitute in it." I was like, "I didn't look at that. I didn't look at it that way. I thought it was just such a beautiful movie. It just never occurred to me." It's the old story of rags to riches, isn't it? So see what I mean? When you get older, you look back and you think, wow, this is just, something I've just never looked at before. I've never seen it before. Um, It's so true, isn't it? So you just don't think about that when you're a kid. You don't have that mindset. And yet, how many people are out there talking about the evils of the world and how we, let our children do things, I remember when iPads came in and people were talking all the time about their children on iPads. Well, hello, I had a record player in my room when I was a kid, and my parents thought that was going to burn my brain away. I remember saving up for a record player so I could play my records, and I had it in my bedroom and I loved it. And my parents were all about, if you listen to too much music, your brain will melt. You'll be influenced by that music. And that just sort of blows me away a little bit, that, you get to that point where you're thinking, and then I thought, well, I remember my parents talking about Elvis Presley and the Beatles, like Elvis Presley swinging his hips like that. Oh my goodness, the world was horrified. The Beatles having long hair, oh, the world was horrified. What did we notice? What do we notice in that? It's what people put emphasis on, isn't it? So we grow up thinking some things are evil. And I never really saw that with Dirty Dancing or even Pretty Woman. I thought they were really beautiful movies that both told very normal stories for people. But yes, you can look at things very differently later on and go, wow, never got that at all. The Breakfast Club. Yeah, see what I mean? So you didn't remember how much swearing there was in that. Yeah, absolutely. We all loved The Breakfast Club. We loved all those people, the James Spade. Oh God, I love James Spader. But all of those people in those movies, they were fabulous, weren't they? Those times, all through there. Pretty in Pink, one of my favorites, but fantastic. Yeah, it's crazy how we see things, but just goes to show, when you think about it, how easily influenced we are as human beings and how much stuff we take on that really doesn't belong to us. They didn't show elephants dancing. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to be really, really ready for them, Gigi, when they ask you. I mean, when my daughter said that to me, I was like, hang on a moment. I can remember things when I was a kid too, and sort of not really understanding them and just watching them for sake of watching them. And not really understanding the greater values or the stories that were underneath them. But if people saw that as evil, which they probably did, I would have grown up thinking that was evil when possibly that's just a normal part of life. I mean, I'm at the point now where I think, people can do what they want with their lives. We can't judge people for being certain people or doing certain things. So in a way, it's been really good for my kids to sort of, be comfortable with that side of themselves. I can remember getting so uncomfortable watching people being intimate in movies, and it used to really freak me out. I used to just do everything to hide away from that intimacy. That made me feel really uncomfortable. But Noddy and Big Ears, were they a couple, or was that just the way it was sort of portrayed? Because I'm sorry, I was a big Noddy fan. I loved Noddy when I was a kid. I was everything Noddy. I don't remember seeing anything in that whatsoever. And they did it with the Famous Five too. oh, she's a lesbian and he's like this and she's like that. And I was like, really? I don't remember seeing all that stuff when I was a kid. So now you're going to take it away? And we're not allowed to say Baba Black Sheep anymore either, because apparently that's not good either. So the kids, my grandchildren, all the words to the nursery rhymes have changed. Like, okay, some of them I might agree with. But when we were kids, we sang, oh golly, there was an old lady who swallowed a spider, and it might have been Patrick because he's not up here anymore. There was an old lady that swallowed a spider that tickled and tickled and tickled inside her. I don't know how she swallowed a fly. That's right, it was a fly. Perhaps she'll die. Now they don't say that. They're not allowed to. It's oh my. So we don't talk about dying anymore. It's not good for children, apparently, to know that one day they're going to die. And there was something else, Baba Black Sheep. Yeah, that's a really good movie, Jodie. I loved that too. I related to so much of that movie. It was creepy. Yeah, so there's a lot of those things now. Okay, so I'm the same with my kids. I think it's really naive to think your children won't try drugs. I think it's really naive to think they're not going to try cigarettes. I think it's extremely naive to think they won't try alcohol. But more naive than anything is that kids are not going to sexually experiment at a younger age. So I'm very, very much about how do you prepare then to make sure that your children are aware of the dangers of those things, because they're going to do them anyway. So I sat my kids down and said, these are the things you're probably going to try in your life. If you try them and you get scared, or it's too much for you, or it's a worry or whatever else, you can always call me and I will come and get you. And if you've drank too much alcohol, if you've smoked pot and you're freaked out, if you've had a sexual experience with someone and you need to go and get yourself checked, I will be there for you every time. And do you know what? Every one of my kids did that. My daughter rang me the first time she got really drunk. I think she was about 15, and she'd gone to a party and somebody gave her vodka. And when I picked her up, she rang me. And when I picked her up, she was so sick she just couldn't stop vomiting. Neither could her friend. But somebody thought that was funny doing that to them. But I tell you what, it really taught them both a lesson. They were sick all night, the pair of them. But I got them home safely. And I went and got them from wherever they were. Like, it wasn't that late, really, maybe about 10 o'clock at night. My oldest child tried pot for the first time and freaked out, absolutely freaked out about how they felt. I left work to go and pick them up, to go and make sure that they were safe. I just think that that's what you do. But if you're going to be in denial and you're going to teach your children that that's wrong and they shouldn't do it, then when they need help, they are not going to call you. They're going to try and battle it through on their own. So you don't get an opportunity to say, this is what the outcomes are. I could have told you this, but you weren't going to listen to me. You were going to try it anyway. So either that, or you have to make a choice to say no to people. And that is the big thing. We've got it at the moment with my granddaughter with being bullied at school. I think you have to be really clear that these sort of things happen all the time. You can't deny that these things happen. I did the same as soon as my children started asking me about what sex was. I did the same thing. I sat them down and talked to them about what sex was. I talked to them at the level they needed to understand. I didn't need to give them all the details, but I certainly needed to give them enough information so that if anybody tried anything on them, at least they knew what it was. Smooching is beautiful. I love my kisses now, Jodie. But I was very uncomfortable as a kid. I can remember it made me feel terribly uncomfortable. But no, definitely not anymore. Hayley, I think that's beautiful. Political correctness is a form of hiding what is reality. Absolutely. It's denial at its very best. 10-year-old children talk about death. We have one of the twins at the moment who's a bit focused on death. When my children talked of death, I was very upfront with them and told them the truth, and it freaked them out. So I think there is a little bit of manipulation about the truth when it comes to death and dying. I think you can be a little kinder, and I think that's probably why our parents taught us we'd go to heaven, because heaven was the place that sort of buffered the horrible thought of dying. But kids do go through that, definitely. Benny Hill, yes, loved Benny Hill. So inappropriate. First experience, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, good, Lauren. You need to be completely honest. You don't have to tell them everything. Like, you don't have to tell them every detail, but you can answer their questions in a way that you enlighten them and give them the resources to know how to work with it in their own life. You do not have to give them every detail, but you can certainly allow them enough for them to understand. It's normal for kids to pay nurses and doctors. We are really curious about each other's bodies. We've all done that. I'll have to go and have a look at that, Jody. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my daughter still drank after having that experience, but I think she knew how much to drink after that. She was probably suffering a bit of alcohol poisoning. Yeah. I think that your children should be able to count on you as a parent. I think that you're very naive if you think your children aren't going to do those things. It's crazy. It's crazy. You can't live in denial. I know what I did. I had a really strict upbringing. I wasn't even allowed out in the evenings. I wasn't allowed out after school. We were never allowed out on a Sunday. So the only time I got to go out was Saturday. I fought and rebelled against that for my whole childhood, trying to assert myself. And of course, because of that, because of all those restrictions, I wanted to try everything. I was so adventurous. And I look back and I think, I wish I had a bit more of that in me now, that rebellious nature, that, wanting to sort of push against everything that I was told I couldn't do. And I did. I pushed against it all. Good. That's good, Susan. That's how it should be. Thanks, Jody. Benny Hill. Yes, loved Benny Hill. Totally inappropriate. But then I love Ricky Gervais, and he's just as inappropriate. Yeah, that's what I think. You can count on. You can work with your children with what you think they need to know. Okay, there are times when your children will ask you something that is beyond their comprehension of what they are asking. Okay, so sometimes a child can ask you something and it's very difficult to explain at the level that they're going to understand. So I think that sometimes we have to tame it a little bit, but we can still give them enough that they can not be abused themselves or not take that with them into their adulthood. But if you say to a child, you are not allowed to smoke cigarettes, I think your child's probably going to rebel against that. Whether you tell them it's healthy or not will not make any difference whatsoever, because a child doesn't really understand their own how would you put it? A child thinks they're pretty much infallible going through their early teens. They don't really think that they're going to die. They may be scared when they're 8 or 10, but they go through a period of time where they're quite narcissistic, not narcissistic in a way that we're talking about narcissism, but a child at certain ages think that they can't be hurt by anything. That's why they become such risk takers. And that certainly happens between about 13 and 15, but for other kids, it might be a little bit earlier or later than that. But they don't think that they can be affected by things. They don't have a conception, I guess, of their own mortality. So if you say to a kid, don't do that, it's really dangerous, the kid's probably going to go, yeah, you know what you're talking about. I've already smoked 5 cigarettes. I'm already here. I remember when I was working in youth homelessness, and I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. I had a girl that I was working with who kept overdosing on Panadol. And she would go every time she had money and buy a box of Panadol and then just hugely overdose on them, thinking it was going to kill her. And I remember saying to her, you're doing a lot of damage to your body now that probably is not going to show up for you for a number of years. So you are, in effect, slowly killing yourself. So even if you don't die instantly, you go up and you have your stomach pumped and you get your body flushed and whatever else. This damage you're doing now is probably going to show up in a few years' time, and your kidneys, liver, whatever is going to collapse and maybe never be replaceable. And what other damage it can be doing as well. But see, kids are pretty, they see what they want to see, and she just didn't want to be here anymore. Well, girls seem to think it's easier doing yourself in by taking an overdose, whereas a boy might get in a car and slam himself in a tree somewhere. A girl will want to do it the most gentle way she knows how. But the damage she was doing long term, she could not see that. She could not see that into the future. So she did it so many times. I don't even know if she's still here. We're immortal till we're 25. I thought it was 27. I got that wrong, Janet. Figure your own shit out. I like that. Yeah, that's a little bit tough. If my kids call me now and do that, it probably would be a little bit less of a pushover. But I certainly think when kids are trying stuff and trying new stuff, it's a little bit different. Of course, Lauren, you're naive if you think your children aren't going to try stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that all kids don't. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are kids out there who say no and mean no. But I don't know that every kid's like that. I think most kids are curious and want to try things. I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, has he only got one kidney? Oh, that's a little bit sad, isn't it? What was that, through illness or born that way? Yeah, that's pretty tough. But I mean, people get by on one kidney. So hopefully he'll do quite well with it. But again, I guess as a parent, you've got to talk to him about, how do you live that way and how do you look after yourself? I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Well, Scott, I must have been a very curious kid. I must have been incredibly curious, and I'm still here. And I always say to people, I did a lot of stuff. Believe me, a lot of stuff I shouldn't have done. And I'm still here. But it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about my journey. And certainly put me in a position where I worked with young kids for a very long time, and I was able to talk to them about that stuff. Because if you didn't do that stuff and you weren't interested, you're one of a kind. And that, for some people, I guess that's great, but it's not the norm, or what I would call the norm. Because most kids are curious, most kids want to experiment, most kids want to find out who they are, and they will try those things to fit in with other kids, to be accepted by other kids, to not feel as weird. I felt so weird as a child, very, very weird, very much like I didn't belong. I understand all that now because of my upbringing, but I didn't understand that as a kid. I just thought I was a little bit loopy, a little bit crazy, a little bit abnormal. So I wanted desperately to be accepted by people, validated by others. That was really important to me. Hey, Jane, how you going? You were a wild child too, Gigi. Yeah. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret a thing. I don't know if there's any such thing as normal, really, Scott. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret a thing. I think everything is there to teach us a lesson. See, that's how I see it. I think, okay, I managed to survive it all. I may have been lucky. I don't know. I did a lot of experimentation. certainly in all areas. I wasn't limited in that. I like to try things. I just did. And sometimes I wish I was more like that. I'm probably less likely to try things now. But again, I've still got to the age I am and still going. So at the end, yeah, no regrets. That's my middle name. I agree, Gigi. And as I said, I used a lot of my learnings and my skills when I worked with kids because they always ask you, did you do that stuff? Did you take drugs when you were young? My kids asked me, did you take drugs when you were young? Well, when I was working with the kids in the refuge, I used to say to them, what do you think? Do you think I would have done? We all experiment. It's what we do. It's how we find ourselves. So, see you, Jody. Thank you. Yeah, you have. Love you long time. Thank you. So I think that yeah, it does make you streetwise. It certainly opens you up to things. You don't sort of sit in your naivety for as long. But when I talked to my kids about it, I was more open. I certainly talked about the things I did. I'd had a couple of really bad experiences with drugs, so I was quite open with them about that. Mainly because I feel those are the sort of things when you're working with kids in refuges and things like that, you always talk about harm minimization. I think it's the best approach. Maybe other people wouldn't agree with me, but if you're going to go out and have sex with people, then you are better to use a condom. And you have no idea how many kids go, well, I don't need to worry, I won't fall pregnant. I'm like, the pregnancy is the least of your problems. There are a lot of STDs that you may never get rid of. I mean, look at AIDS. So it was sort of like you're trying to always minimize the damage rather than allow children to think they can do things and they're infallible, or it won't hurt them or it won't touch them. So it is really interesting. I don't even know how we got on this subject, but it is really interesting. I think it was something to do with the movies and talking about the movies. I love that. I love that, Jody. She's going out with a big bang there. Herpes, a gift that keeps on giving. Yes, herpes is a good one, isn't it? I know a lot of people who have herpes who would never tell partners when they'd have sex with them. And I think that's really wrong thing to do. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how we got onto that subject, but I better go. It is 7 minutes over the hour, so I've been on here for a long time. I have to go and get myself organised and do a few more things. For some of you, we've got a group tomorrow, so I won't be doing a live on here tomorrow. I will be doing it on Sunday. For others of you, I'm going to get our group up and running next week. And after I've had this week's Zoom thing, then I'll start getting the group up and running for Saturdays, and we'll probably do it at a slightly different time so it doesn't interrupt the day too much. All right. So much love to you all. Thank you so much for joining me. We've had such a good time on here today. Thank you for listening to my story as well after the Akashic record reading. And I will see you on Sunday. Mwah!